Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock. It's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a video talking about how to transition from a close-up performer to a kids show performer, which again is a question I've had a lot of people ask. How do I go from close-up magic to doing kid shows? I did a video recently on how to go from close-up to stage and how to actually take close-up magic and play it on stage. And if you haven't seen that video, you can go back and watch it. But this is specifically about how to go from a close-up magician to a kids magician. Now, this is a question that I've had an awful lot. You get a lot of people on the channel asking how they can start in kid shows. And I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to talk about why. Why would you want to be a kid show performer? Because there is a certain level of snobbery in the magic community, and I've heard close-up magicians in the past and stage magicians go, oh, I'd never perform for children. No, not in a million years would I ever perform for children. So I'm going to give you, first of all, a few different reasons why I think it's important for close-up magicians to learn how to do kid shows. Let me give you a couple of different reasons. First of all, the first reason is it makes you a better performer if you understand how to perform for children and get a reaction from children. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had people comment on this channel going, oh my gosh, I've just got back from a wedding, or I've just got back from a private party, kids were following me around and I didn't know how to deal with it, they wouldn't leave me alone. How do I actually deal with that? Well, if you're a kids performer, or if you're a performer that performed for children, you wouldn't have an issue with that at all. Being a kid show performer means that you can actually perform for kids in a close-up environment and absolutely win them over, and win them over to a point that they won't be following you around, right? When I go to a wedding, for example, and there's a whole bunch of kids there, I know that if I'm going over and performing at the kids table, they are absolutely going to love it. I'm not going to be worried. I'm not going to not go to the kids table. I'm going to do it and I'm going to have a fantastic time. It doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to become all kiddie. It doesn't mean that I'm going to put on a wig and a clown suit and just go over there and start being Mr. Tumble. That's not what being a kids performer is all about. I don't have that style. A lot of kids entertainers don't have that style. A lot of kids entertainers these days, they wear a suit and tie and they're not dressed all over the top, bright clown style. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of kids entertainers don't do that these days. But what a kids entertainer can do is they understand what makes entertaining for kids tick. Which means that if they go into a situation where they're performing to children as part of a gig, they can very easily do that, but without degrading their ability to perform for adults. It's not like any of the adults would give feedback and go, oh, we wanted a close-up magician, we hired a kids performer. Not like that at all. But a good kids entertainer who also does close-up will know how to engage the children whilst also engaging the adults. So that's the first thing it does. Second thing it does is you have to understand that most kids entertainers these days are family entertainers. It's why Blackpool changed the name of their competition to the Family Entertainer of the Year. Most kids entertainers these days, when they do a show, it's designed to play to families, not just to kids. So learning how to do kids magic will make you a more rounded performer, because you'll be able to stand in front of a bunch of kids, you'll be able to stand in front of a bunch of adults, and you'll be able to do magic that will impress both the kids and the adults. Very important point. Another really important point that I want to bring up is that if your goal is to become a stage performer, then learning how to do kid shows is a great jumping off point. And what I mean by that is if you're doing close-up, there's a very good chance you're probably only performing for two or three people at a time. At the most, you're doing big tables of 10 or 12 people. There is a huge world of a difference between performing to 7 or 8 people and performing to 50 or 60 people. Well, kids entertainers have to perform in front of that many people every single time they do a show, because they have all of the kids sat down. There's probably 20, 30, 40 kids, if not more, but then they've got all the adults at the back watching as well. And they have to work really hard to get the attention of everybody, because the thing with kids is they're honest. And if they don't like a show, if they don't like what they see, they're either going to tell you or they're going to stand up and they're going to walk off. Simple as. And adults don't do that. Adults are polite. You know, I've seen so many terrible magicians go over to a group of people and you can just tell they weren't impressed, but they're giving them sympathy applause because they don't want to be that guy. Kids don't do that. They have no filter. So by going and learning how to be a kids entertainer, what you're ultimately going to be doing is you're ultimately going to be learning how to perform in front of big groups of people, you know, 60, 70 people in a village hall, which means that when you go and perform on stage, if that's your goal to perform on stage, you're more used to performing in front of a lot of people. Because one of the big problems that magicians have when they're first performing on stage is how to make a routine play big. Because if you're a close-up magician, you can very easily do a vanish of a coin, for example, and get a reaction from a small group of people. But it takes a completely different skill set to do that same vanish and get a reaction from a big group of people in an audience, right? You learn how to do that in a kid show, and then you can transition that very, very easily into a stage show. The big reason for me, or another couple of reasons, but this is the big reason for me why most close-up magicians should learn how to do kid shows, is because it gives you a level of income if things are going badly. Like, so for example, in the UK, everyone's talking about recession, everyone's talking about people having no money, everyone's talking about companies like running out of cash and cutting back on entertainment. I had a conversation the other day with an entertainer, a really good entertainer, a big corporate entertainer who's one of the top corporate entertainers in the UK, and he was worried. He was worried about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months, because he was thinking that corporates are going to massively cut back on budget, which can happen. I remember setting up my business in 2008 over here in the UK, and there was a recession, and no corporates were booking, or very few corporates were booking entertainment, because they were trying to cut costs, right? And the first thing that they'll do when they cut costs is entertainment. They won't do all the big lavish events that you'd normally require an entertainer for. So yeah, absolutely. But you know what? If you learn how to do kid shows, it is always there for you. Because here's the thing, it's very, very rare, even in the middle of a recession, for birthday party entertainment to die out. It's just very, very rare. Like I said, I built my kids' entertainment business up in the first recession and thrived in the first recession, because even if people are struggling for money, and they can't afford to do that much, they will scrimp and save whatever they can to make sure that their child has a great birthday party that year, because they want to have that one special day. So birthday party entertainment is always there. And you know what? We're in the middle, as I say, we're in the middle of a financial crisis over here in the UK as a fallout from the pandemic. But you know what? My kids' entertainment company is taking more bookings than ever before. And it's because people still want to book kids' entertainment, right? We're almost fully booked through to about March next year. So there's always work there for kids' entertainers. There's always work there for kids entertainers if you learn how to be a kids entertainer. If everything goes badly and if the entire corporate market dries up, and for some reason, not that it's going to do, but the entire wedding market dries up, you've always got that thing there. And that's what happened in the pandemic for me. A lot of close-up guys were going out getting delivery jobs, and there's nothing wrong with that. They had to do what they had to do to survive. I transitioned into virtual parties, and anybody who knows anything about my kids' entertainment company, if anybody works for them, you'll know that we were doing probably, and I'm not exaggerating, about 60 or 70 virtual kid shows a day. Like, we were doing so many virtual kid shows because parents still wanted entertainment for their kids, and they still wanted to have a party for their kids. So you've got that aspect there as well. You've got that aspect of it gives you a certain level of financial security. The one other thing that I'd say is that yeah, the one other thing that I'd say is it helps you work in new material. Now, what I mean by that is if you've got a new stage prop that you want to work in. So, for example, I'm going to give Ryland as an example right now, because Ryland does kid shows, but he also does corporates and weddings and stage shows and so on and so forth with me a lot of the time. So he's just put together a dancing hank routine, Shaw Begonia's dancing hank routine. It's very different to any dancing hank routine that I've seen before, but he's never worked with thread before, so it's kind of a nerve-wracking new experience for him because he's having to deal with, timing and programmable, and he's got music playing. There's a lot of moving parts to this particular act. It's like a 9-minute routine, and there's a lot of moving parts, right? So what he did is he worked it in, first of all, in kid shows. He went and did some kid shows, and he worked it in kid shows just so he could, not so much so he could work on the presentation, because the presentation is obviously different to a kid show as it is to a stage show, but just the act of working it in and getting comfortable with it, and where is it going to be, and at what point am I going to do this, and at what point am I going to do that, and what happens if this happens, and what happens when that happens. If you can work that in a kid show and get those moving parts in order, it means that you're not going cold into a stage show with a new prop that you've never worked on stage before. It means that you're going to have confidence working new material in, right? So, with all that being said, hopefully I've maybe tried to convince you that being a kid show entertainer is a good idea. With that being said, I said I was going to give you some advice on how you can go from being a close-up magician to a kid show entertainer. Well, the first thing is you have to understand you don't necessarily have to be the typical kids entertainer. You don't have to dress in a silly outfit. You don't have to wear wigs. You don't have to be the stupid guy that's just bumbling Mr. Tumble style person. As long as you make it, the key thing to a kid show, right, is you want to make it engaging, you want to make it fun, you want to make it interactive, you want to make it high energy. You can do that without being silly. Sure, there's a certain level of silliness with anybody, but if you've seen somebody like John Kimmo perform, John Kimmo is kind of like a very angry type of kids entertainer. He's like very angry with the kids all the time. But it works. It absolutely works. He's won Family Entertainer of the Year. He's one of the busiest kid show entertainers in the world. He's currently working all on Disney cruise liners, and his persona when he's doing kid shows is that he's not the silly guy at all. He's the angry guy dressed in a suit, and the kids find it absolutely hilarious. So understand that you don't necessarily have to change your persona or the way that you dress too much. Second of all, understand, and this is a big mistake that kids entertainers make, understand that the magic you do should be as impressive for the adults as it is for the kids. Because ultimately, if you want to get more bookings as a kid show entertainer, you want to impress the adults. Yes, you want to impress the kids. It goes without saying that you want to impress the kids, but you also want to impress the adults. After all, they're the one picking up the phone and spending the money. So the routines that you would do that would impress adults, you can absolutely do that in your kids show. I put a video up on this channel a little bit, about 8 months to a year ago, and it was called How to Run an Awesome Kids Party. And you can go and check that out if you want to. It's called How to Run an Awesome Kids Party. Now, in that video, I actually kind of played performance footage of a lot of the routines that I do in my kid show. And one of the routines that I actually did performance footage of is my sponge ball routine. So I do a 7-minute sponge ball routine for kids, just using 3 sponge balls, 2 yellow sponge balls and a red sponge ball. 3 sponge balls and I can get 7 minutes of entertainment out of it. But it's the type of routine that plays really, really big and works to a huge audience, right? And kids will absolutely love it, but the adults will love it as well. So if you do sponge balls or you do something like that, you can transition that into your kids show. You don't have to go and buy all the latest colourful props if you don't want to. You can take, I've done ambitious card in kids' parties before for kids. Regularly, I do fibre optics in kids shows. Regularly, I do acrobatic knock in kids shows. Regularly, I do sponge balls in kids shows. Regularly, I do liquid metal in kids shows. Regularly, I do cards across in kids shows. Regularly, I do Axel Hecklau spooning around in kid shows. Regularly, I do linking rings in kid shows. Yeah, I've got some other bits and pieces in there as well that are kind of more kiddie, like 20th century silks and silk blendos and colouring routines and stuff like that. But I'd be happy to go and do a show and not do that. You don't have to do that. You can take the routines that you're comfortable with and you can make them play in a kid show, as long as you learn how to make them play bigger. And the ability to make these tricks play bigger are going to help you no end, not just as a kid show entertainer, but also if you ever eventually transition onto a stage and you start doing stage magic. Having that ability to make those routines play bigger is really going to help, right? One thing that I would say in all of this, though, is, like I said, it really should be high energy. Parents are normally very, very chilled when it comes to watching a kid's entertainer. Their basis of whether the party has been a success or not is based really on, did the kids enjoy themselves? Were they engaged? Were they sitting there and paying attention or not walking off, right? So as long as the kids are sitting there and having a really good time, then that's really all you need to do. And my rule of thumb to make sure that happens is I say that every 3 seconds, something should happen to engage the children. That might be asking them a question. That might be doing something that's going to make them laugh. It might be doing something that's going to make them surprised. It might be doing a piece of magic. It might be telling them a joke. It doesn't really matter. But every 3 seconds, there should be something that happens that engages the children, right? That's very, very important. In terms of if you're a stage performer and you're performing on stage, like I said, having the ability to work those tricks in a kids show environment is really good. Like most of the tricks in my stage show, they started off by being worked in my kids show, and then over time they kind of made their way into my stage show. But it's the kids show where I work them in, right? So that's another massive advantage. But look, here's the thing. It's not that different performing in front of a bunch of kids than it is performing close-up magic. And I know there's going to be a bunch of people watching this video that are going to be kind of snobby, and they're going to be thinking, you know what? I'm never going to perform for kids. I'm never going to do the kid shows. That's not me. And that's fine. If that's the way you want to be, that's absolutely fine. All I can say is I am where I am in my career, and I have what I have right now because I can perform for children. And that's because I spent the time and effort to learn how to do kid shows as well as close-up and as well as stage shows. So my advice to anybody watching this is just take the leap, because you never know when you need it. You know, I was so glad during the pandemic I was able to focus on virtual shows for kids. I was so glad during when I first set up my business that I had kid shows, because it was in the middle of a pandemic and nobody had close-up work, really, no corporate work. There was nothing like that going on until later on. So yeah, really, honestly, if there's one thing that you learn from this, and there's one thing that you can take from this video, it's don't be afraid to put a kid show together. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I think that, and you know, you look at people like Michael J. Fitch, you know, he's one of the busiest corporate entertainers in the UK, but he's got a kid show, and he's very, very proud of the fact that he does kid shows. There's nothing wrong with being a kid show entertainer. There's really not. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Do me a favor, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, you want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. If you haven't already done so, go check out the NETRIX. It's www.thenetrix.com. It's my online streaming platform for magicians, and every single week we're adding new stuff and we're adding new content, and I'm so happy with the group of people that we have in there, because everyone seems to be loving it, and that's what I like to see. So if you want to see more from the NETRIX, just go and check it out and see what all the fuss is about. www.thenetrix.com. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with another video, so thanks once again for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.